What's happening, y'all? It's Justin Lamar, aka Juice Daddy J, and today we're talking about social media. Alright, guys, so today we're talking about social media, and I wanted to cover that subject because it is very important and I think it's growing even more in importance as we get older. One thing I didn't realize, a lot of kids nowadays, they don't get a chance to experience life without social media. That's something that I didn't consider an advantage growing up, but it is something as a benefit that I'm looking back on now. Like, man, I'm glad I got to know myself, some of my interests, some of my hobbies, habits, good or bad, strengths and weaknesses, before I got into the world of online interaction. So I kind of wanted to just cover in this video maybe a way to maximize your usage of social media, even if you're a minimalist or however it is that you move. So when it comes to social media, I think the very first thing you should do, and this is kind of piggybacking off of my hiatus that I took. If you haven't gone seen that video, make sure y'all go check it out. You need to figure out who you are in real life. I call this the IRL phase, but it's nothing crazy. It's just figuring out what your interests are, maybe even your demographic, and that's beyond just skin color or nationality. But let's say, for example, you're a skateboarder, right? You might look up hashtag skateboarding or different events or different places where skateboarders might be popular, different things or trends that skateboarders might be following. See, something like that would help benefit you a lot once you get online and trying to experience different things. I think after you get a good handle on what your interests are, strengths, weaknesses, maybe just some things you enjoy, some things you don't enjoy so much, you'll start to understand what applications maybe work best for you. The frequency might become a little more apparent, but all in all, you should be getting a better understanding of what works for you specifically. Now, the next part of this social media video is setup. Setup is essentially who are you taking influence from? It's also in some capacity who are you giving influence to, but whether you realize it or not, when somebody has some kind of control over the media that you see on a daily basis, they have some sort of influence over you. Even if it's very small, very minuscule, even if the only influence over you they have is just what happens when their image or their video or their reel hits your screen for the amount of time that is up there. It's still influence on you because it's content that you've allowed to be filtered into your app. One thing a lot of people like to focus on is trying to get your followers up or trying to follow as many people as possible, or perhaps even worrying about how many views that you're getting. And a lot of that is attention based as opposed to being more engagement focused. You know what I mean? One thing that I've noticed is a trend, and you can look at almost anybody. I mean, your favorite celebrity, even. Go look at their latest post. Based off of the amount of people that follow them versus the amount of people that have actually left comments, liked, or done anything of that nature to their content, the numbers will be so far in between. And I think that's crazy. To be honest with you, it's a bit abysmal to have so many people following you, or so many people viewing your content, or so many people who are aware of what you got going on, who are just there to watch. It's also partial motivation for me to make this video, especially for the young children who may not have this guidance, but they're still getting the same amount of access. So when it comes to picking out who you follow, who you interact with, it's very important for you to note what it is your core values are, or the different things that you like, or the different things, again, from the IRL stage, and let that translate. Don't go follow, I used to be in a real bad habit. Don't go follow celebrities just because they're celebrities, or go follow people that you just happen to see once or twice. Go follow people that you've actually interacted with, or that you want to interact with, or people that have made an approach to interact with you. Those are the kind of people that you would most likely want to be on your social media. Now, that's not to say everybody, but for example, right? Okay. It's not to say everybody that you follow has to be so influential or plays such a big role in your influence. But you don't want to just be following people willy-nilly left and right anyway. For example, something that I would do maybe in the past time is I used to follow almost every player on my favorite team's roster, right? I noticed a big difference in this in between when I had specific people. For example, my favorite football player of all time is Steve Smith. So what he posts and what he does and la 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 had a little bit more influence on me than the rest of the team. A lot of people that I was following on the team, again, I was just following for the sake that they were on the team, right? I might not follow the Miami Heat, but Dwayne Wade's been my favorite all-time basketball player for years now. So I might follow Dwayne Wade, and when he posts something or he says something, as far as the influence goes, I might care a little bit more because of that connection. You want that same connection, but just with your general audience. You don't have to be a celebrity. You can just be on the app. I think this is the portion where it starts to go from black and white and we start to get in that gray zone. But essentially, you and some of your favorite celebrities are actually doing the exact same thing. The only difference is the numbers and quantity. But who interacts and stays engaged anyway? Can you go on their page and see them leaving comments or leaving comments under other pages? Do you see them constantly or even on occasion liking something or reposting something on their stories? If these are people that I feel like they're not reposting or they're not doing enough, then I'm not gonna have enough interest to follow you. The reason this is important is because online interaction is very much so like in-person interaction is just missing a few different subtle things. But just like real life, you teach people how to treat you. So whether it be a verbal thing, whether it be some kind of body language cues, whether it be just the action, let me get away from this person, or let me make sure I'm more focused on this, it doesn't really matter. There's going to be something done to notify that other person that the vibe is not there. Let's say somebody posts something that you might find a little bit offensive. There's so many ways you could go about it. You could comment, you could DM the person or the company. The simplest thing to do, especially if this is a multiple occasion, this is a habitual thing, is likely to just unfollow that person and or page. Now, once you have a list of followers that not only follow you back for the most part, they're at least engaging for the most part, they're at least being active and posting themselves for the most part, then you most likely have yourself something to work with on your social media. I believe the next thing and an important thing to cover is uploading. How is it that you're putting content out there? Now, it doesn't matter if you're being a content creator per se, or someone who's just creating content. Somebody that might just be on the app. Everybody's usage is different. So in particular to you, you should figure out what routine is best for you. And again, that kind of goes with the in real life thing, but also the apps that you're using and the form and what you're sharing, right? If you're on TikTok, you'll be sharing most likely short form videos. If you're on Instagram, you can be posting any kind of media. If you're on Twitter, you're most likely involved in some kind of discussion, conversation, hitting some kind of topics, but in conjunction with a routine. How often are you gonna post? What are you gonna post? Where are you gonna post it at? You don't have to have a whole filled out schedule to figure out how you would like to run your own page, but at the same time, having at least some idea of how you like things, it will help so much more in the long run. For example, with me and planning ahead, I prefer to post in bursts. So not to give y'all my whole schedule, right? And everything's always subject to change, but I check my social medias at least a handful of times a day. So I'll look on my Instagram and Twitter and TikToks at any point in time, but it'll likely be late morning, early afternoon, that 11 to 1 range, right? I might get another chance around 3 to 5, right? I might get another chance around 6 to 7. Not only am I aware that I'm most likely going to be able to look at my phone, or I'm going to most likely be on social media at this point in time, right? In terms of viewing, in terms of uploading, I can also plan out, okay, what would I like my uploads to be? Now, one of the things that I think is the best for a minimalist, maximalist, or whatever kind of ish that you are on social media, I think are stories. When it comes to uploading to stories, I think you can do this obviously at any point in time, but the beautiful thing is that they delete themselves after 24 hours. So even if you're someone that doesn't want to post, right? Or you don't even want to post very frequently, stories are a real good way to be somewhat active without necessarily having to be out there. So I'm gonna break down real quick the formula that I use when it comes to uploading stories. So first thing, I upload something of me. The second thing, I upload something of my friends. The third thing, I upload something of mine. And the fourth thing, I upload something I like. Now, explaining each of these is only gonna take a quick second, but each of them are important in their own ways. For one thing, I believe starting off with something of me is important. It doesn't necessarily have to be a selfie. I might not be looking or feeling the best that day. It doesn't have to be a boomerang or anything crazy. It could be a small snippet of you riding passenger seat and you got the camera aiming out the window. You could be doing pretty much anything, right? But something that actually shows that human touch, it actually goes a long way. Whenever someone clicks on your profile picture, whether it be a selfie of you or a logo for your brand or wherever it is, I think it's best for whoever's creating the content that's on that story to at least show something of themselves first. I say that because there's so many people who post on stories and in other forms of media, and it's just nothing but stuff that is not them or even in relation to them. Maybe not even in relation to their page. So a lot of times I think things can get misconstrued because if you're clicking on somebody's icon, I think the first thing you should see is them. The second thing, something of my friends. So when I say something of my friends, I'm referring to something notable. And when I say friend, I'm referring to someone that's at the very least an associate, right? But they're doing something that I support. Now, I use personally hashtag support your friends. You do not have to use hashtag support your friends. It could be supporting the homies. It could be hashtag squad, hashtag homegirl, homeboy. It don't matter. But I do think it's very important for you to have something, whether it's a hashtag, a GIF, whether you just say it in some form of caption. I think it's just important for you to have some way to stamp and say that I approve of this person doing this or doing that. What it does as far as your image, there's some kind of associative value that's with that. If I'm reposting somebody that's, got a sophisticated image and they're carrying themselves in a certain way or a certain manner, right? A lot of times that can start to rub off on me because as a hashtag support your friends, this is someone or something that I support. And whatever it is that they're doing, selling, releasing, doesn't matter what it is, this is also something I support. That could also work for you in the negative way as well. I've had people who've asked me, how come I'm not on your support your friends? And I've had to tell some harsh truths that some of the things that you do or some of the things that you at least post about, I do not support. I don't think it would be good contrast if I'm posting somebody here that's doing something and then you're doing something of complete opposite. Sometimes the kind of content that you're putting out there is not the kind of content I support. Now, not all of my reposts will be hashtag support your friends. I mean, support your friends is supposed to be a notable thing. I have a friend that's doing movie production, a friend that's doing music production, a friend that's modeling, and they post something along the lines of their modeling or their movie production or whatever it is, right? I can repost that and say hashtag support your friends. If it's just a personal, oh, happy birthday, I'm just gonna put hashtag repost. But the point is to support your friends when they are doing something, or even associates when they are doing something that you would deem positive. Part of the appeal of support your friends or support the homies or squad or whatever your hashtag or whatever you plan to use is it's supposed to establish a system because, well, like real life, I think most people want energy reciprocated. So if you're doing something that I approve of or you're modeling or this, that, and the third, now granted, you might not approve of everything that I'm doing, right? But if I've hashtag supported your friends a handful of times or a few times or even just once and I don't get that energy reciprocated, then that's most likely time for someone to dial back and stop hashtag supporting so much. You know what I mean? Because again, it's about teaching people how to treat you. And even in an online setting, it's just as important as in person. Now, the next portion, something of mine, that's particularly notable stuff for me. So, for example, okay, a typical story of mine might look like a boomerang of me, and then hashtag support your friends. My friend is doing music production, then hashtag new upload because I put something else on YouTube, right? Something of me, something of my friends, something of mine. And the very last thing that I worry about when it comes to the process of posting stories is something that I like. So, hashtag repost. I'm just posting something that I thought was funny. It could have been a meme. The other day, LeBron unveiled a PlayStation 5 and LeBron in a collab on a PlayStation 5 model, right? That's something that I'm interested in, for one, as a gamer, for two, as a LeBron fan, but then three, It's also pretty cool, dope. I'm a graphic design artist, so this is a graphical collab as well. Those kind of things being reposted, it even helps add into the image of who I am. I mean, that's graphics, that's gaming, that's somebody that I like. You see what I'm saying? And it's a repost based off of the people that I've already set up to view. Unfortunately, you can see some people, a lot of people, don't even post something of me, something of my friends, or something of mine. A lot of people will post just repost. It's just quotes, or it's just lyrics, or it's just music. As much as these things might be something that you like, I think reposting a whole bunch of something that you like, I don't think that's adding to your story. I personally think if you just upload a whole bunch of stuff that's just yours, I don't think that's entirely adding to your story that much either. If you added something that's just supporting your friends, I don't think that that's entirely adding up to your story either. The only thing that I think could stand on its own as far as uploading to your story is something of yourself. But if you wanted to do something of yourself and then just something of the stuff that you like, that to me is a better way to go about just reposting quotes and things that you like. It could be a plant in your room and you have a few seconds where you're taking a video, zooming into the plant, you got the music playing. People's attention span is so short. All people is gonna see a plant, they're gonna hear a song that they either like or they don't like, and they're aware of whose story they're looking at. They're gonna go on to the next thing, and it's gonna be nothing but what you reposted. And then the next thing, and it's something else you reposted. And then they're on to the next story. So you don't have to think about or worry too much. You don't have to concern yourself as much with how many people are gonna view or what people are gonna think. If it's pretty much just a few seconds of just showing that you're a human, I think a lot of people will appreciate that, especially before being, as long as that's going on your story first, that's the first thing people are seeing is something of you when they go onto your page. I don't have a problem with you reposting whatever, but I do tend to stay away from people's pages who are posting nothing but repost on repost on repost, or nothing but somebody's work or their own work. In my opinion, it's not personal enough. To maximize on engagement, no matter how many followers you have, I think one of the best things to do is to always have that human element. Now, the very last thing we're going to talk about today when it comes to social media is viewing. I think everyone should have themselves a really good viewing process. Now, it doesn't have to be the same, it doesn't have to be uniform, it doesn't have to be identical every single time, but having some kind of routine into how you view content could help you out a lot. I'll give you a breakdown of typically how I would view some content. Let's say, for sake of example, just a random Monday, Instagram is one of the main social media applications that I utilize. So let's use Instagram as an example. And the first thing I'll do is view a handful of stories. After that, I'll come out of those handful of stories and I'll watch at least a dozen of these different posts that pop up on my feed. After that, I go to the explore page. Most applications have some kind of explore page, but pretty much anywhere where the search bar is. That is the next thing for me. Now, what I typically like to look up, you can look up anything. It could be locations, it could be events, it could be hashtags or things you like. The interesting thing about it is if you find something that people have posted enough about, it already has its own story in itself. For example, after I've gone through about a handful of stories, I've looked at least a dozen different posts, I'll go on the explore page and I'll look up the state of North Carolina, since that's the state that I'm in, right? And I'll look at that story. There's even been some times when I found out things later that I already actually viewed earlier on a story. I might look up the city that I'm in or a surrounding city, right? I might look up an event or something that I know that's going on, right? But it's just a few different things that I'm gonna look up, whether it be locations, events, whatever. Then I might go back and do one more pass, right? Handful of stories, about a dozen different posts. Then you get off. That only takes a total of about maybe 5 or 6 minutes, and that's just one little pass. I'm somebody who gets on social media maybe a few times a day. Now I'm getting up there a decent amount every time, but even if I do portion it out in those small little gaps, you notice I'm getting content from here on stories, I'm getting content from people's posts, as well as getting content from people's stories that they've either posted or reposted from someone else. Now, the only time I'll change this is when, let's say for sake of example, I upload something on my story the day before. If I have something on my story that's within that 24-hour window, right? Let's say it's Tuesday, and I uploaded something on my story on Monday. When I open up my Instagram or whatever social media app I'm using at that time, the first thing I'm likely going to do is look at my story. And I am going to look at the viewage, but it's more so the retention rate, how many people look this time in comparison to other times, and how many people interacted. Again, those are the main things I'm worried about. I think most of us are aware that in most social media stories, the majority of people are going to view in the earliest portion. So that's also in part why I do my story process in the way that I do. But at the same time, almost as a way to reward the people who are interacting and engaging with me, I'll go straight down to the end of my list on my story to who's made it all the way, and I go look at some of those stories for the people that's uploaded things. Then I go out regular and look at a handful of stories and do the same exact process. But every time I log back on or I get back online, those are pretty much the ways in which I'm gonna view content. Now, all in all, you don't have to be a content creator or even really creating a lot of content. If you go down the list of looking at you in real life, looking at your setup, who do you follow on what applications, and how active are you on these applications? Out of the people that it hits, how many people actually interact? And then finally, looking at the viewing, how it is that you are consuming content, what formula or methodology that you use. Once you've done all of these things and you get it into a good routine, you'll start to see a lot more consistency. But if you found this video helpful, I definitely appreciate you making it all the way to the end. And if you enjoyed, make sure you leave a like, maybe even subscribe, y'all. But until next time, peace.